Would you go to a doctor, you know he's not qualified for what he's doing, and he says, I'm going to do surgery on you? Would you go to him? You wouldn't take it from him. Why do you do that for your deen then? Why do you go to online and take fatwas from YouTube videos that you watch, or a snippet, or a quick Google search? You look up the word and keywords, and after that, whatever link comes out, you don't know what website this is, you press on it, and then you go into that channel, and then you take the fatwa. Don't know who gave the fatwa. So how do you have a TikTok account and you're a student of knowledge? My advice to all of you is, if anyone has social media accounts, nasihati ilaykum, wallahi, delete it, khalas, leave it. It's daya' lil waqt. And the fasad and the corruption that it brings you is more than the benefits that it brings you. The person, he studied the deen, his intentions were bad, and then after that he wasn't following the religion and the knowledge that he was learning, and then now he became affected in a negative way. A few months later you're hearing him saying, Allah, I have doubts about Islam. Tawheed is now being taken from you. Why not? You don't deserve Tawheed. You don't deserve anything. Shaitan loves you now. Now he's going to use you to propagate and push misguidance and desires to the people.
وأنزل الله عليك الكتاب والحكمة وعلمك ما لم تكن تعلم وكان فضل الله عليك عظيما.
الحمد لله رب العالمين له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. First of all of you, mashallah, welcome, students of AMAU Academy. So inshallah ta'ala, this class is specifically for you guys, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. We're going to be doing Wasiyyatu Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi, the advice that Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi gave to Muhammad ibn Rafi' As-Salami. Ama As-Salami. Ama some scholars, they say As-Sulami. Different ways of saying his name. This advice is Imam Al-Dhahabi. He wrote it to Muhammad ibn Rafi' As-Sulami. Ama As-Salami. So inshallah ta'ala, does everyone have the book, by the way? Okay, who's got iPhone? I can just drop it for you too, inshallah ta'ala. The kitab is advice. As you know, Allah gives in the Qur'an so many advices. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. This is the advice that Allah gave to this ummah, and He gave it what? To the previous nations. Even another place Allah says, شَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى أَنْ أَقِيَهُ وَشَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ نُوحًا وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ وَمَا وَصَّى بِهِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى أَنْ أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ كَبُرَ عَلَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ. So Allah here is advising these prophets. Hatta even the prophets, when they're on their last moments, they would advise each other. أَمْ كُنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءَ إِذْ حَضَرَ يَعْقُوبَ الْمَوْتُ إِذْ قَالَ لِبَنِيهِ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِي قَالُوا نَعْبُدُ إِلَهَكَ وَإِلَهَ آبَائِكَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ. This is the advice that He gave them, even in His last moments. So one thing I want to say is, the advices that come in the Qur'an, and also the advices that come in the Sunnah. As you know, the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? أُوصِيكُمْ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. I advise you the taqwa of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. In one hadith he said, فَإِنَّهُ رَأْسُ الْأَمْرِ كُلَّهِ. All of matters goes back to this concept of taqwa. So he said, أُوصِيكُمْ, I advise you. Wasiyya is advice. And it's that farewell advice you want to give to somebody when you really think you're not going to maybe see them again. Also, I encourage you guys to look at the advices that the pious predecessors gave. Why is that important? Because the Salaf, their words were قَلِيلَةُ الْمَبَانِ عَظِيمَةُ الْمَعَانِ. Their wordings were very little, but the meaning was deep. As you know, there's a book by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, it's called فَضْلُ عِلْمِ السَّلَفِ عَلَى عِلْمِ الْخَلَفِ. The virtue of the early people compared to those who came later, right? Those who came early and compared to those who came late, there's difference. Salaf, when they speak, very little words, but the meaning is so big. You're like, whoa. You look at the Prophet when he says, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Say, I believe in Allah and be steadfast. That's the whole religion. Volumes can be written on that, صح? الاستقامة في اللسان, الاستقامة على الجوارح, الاستقامة في القلب, الاستقامة on the whole religion is istiqamah, to be steadfast, upright, صح? So I again encourage you to get these books that have the advices of what? The Salaf and the pious predecessors. There's actually a book, if you look at go to page 6 in the copy that I just sent you. In there, the author mentions that there's a Hafiz whose name is Abu Sulaiman Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Zabr Al-Rab'i, who died the year 389 Hijriya, 87 Hijriya, 379 Hijriya. He has a kitab called Wasaya al-Ulama inda Hudur al-Maut. So that book, you should try to get it. It's the advices that the scholars, meaning the Salaf, gave when death was coming to them. Those last moments. Why is it important, those last moments, the words that you say? Because remember, those words you say are the most important thing in your heart. You know you're not going to live for too long. So if you can get that book, inshallah ta'ala, it's very good. Bi'idhnillah al-Kareem. Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Arnaut, he did the tahqiq of the kitab. And he's a very good muhaqqiq. Are we all together? From the scholars that have written advices, wasiyah, is Abil Qasim ibn Mandah. Ibn Mandah has I'm reading all of this from the page 6. Ibn Mandah has written a book on advice. Also, Ibn Qudama rahimahullah. Ibn Qudama has a kitab wasiyah. Ibn al-Jawzi also has a wasiyah, which I taught previously, Laftatul Kabid, fi Wasiyyati al-Walad, where he advises his son. And I think personally, from all the advice that I've read, I think this was the best I've seen. Ibn al-Jawzi is very good at mawa'id and reminders. And the advice he gave is very profound. It's called what? Laftatul Kabid. It's actually translated in English. I think it's called The Sacred in Knowledge. Sah? Darus Sunnah publishing house, they published it. If I'm not wrong and my memory serves me right, they called it The Sacred in Knowledge or something like that. But it's actually the advice that Ibn al-Jawzi gave to his son. A father giving his advice to his son. Allahu musta'an. Also, Abu Walid al-Baji. Abu Walid al-Baji has also an advice book he wrote. From the scholars that written advice is Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. We've seen his Wasiyyatu Suwara. It's an advice. It's an advice that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah constructed and put together. So advices are very good. And I encourage students of knowledge to read them. So seeking knowledge is not just about مسائل and istinbatat and technical things. Advice are very good. What does advice give you? Advice gives you this person's life experience. And the beauty of taking people's experiences on board is that you don't have to waste time. Wallahi. If I know this area very well and I tell you, take this road, you're going to avoid all the traffic. This road, trust me, I've learned it the hard way. Go this way. You will save time. You can achieve things that maybe it took me 20 years to achieve. You can achieve it in 10 years. And the next 10 years, you can be passing me. So, our brothers. But if the person says, no, I don't want to listen to the advice of the people of knowledge, or I don't want to listen to anyone's advice, you end up what? Falling into the same pots and mistakes that the other people fell into, which you could have avoided. And you waste time as well. Are we all together, brothers? So that's the issue of advices. These books that ulama advise, buy them and read them. Are we all together, brothers? One of the great scholars that I believe a lot of people don't even look at is the advice of Imaduddin al-Wasiti. Imaduddin al-Wasiti, he was, I taught a book of his last tour when I came, called Miftahu Tariq al-Awliya. Okay, and this book is full of advice. He's got many books. There's a kitab called Al-Tadhkirat wal-I'tibar. There's a book called Al-Rihla, Journey. Because he was a Sufi, a hardcore Sufi, okay, reached, within the Sufi ranks, he reached a high level where they were like appointing him to be that saint who doesn't have to worship Allah anymore. That level until he met Ibn Taymiyyah. As soon as he met Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah he told him to get rid of all of this abatil and khurafat. And so what happened was, he got rid of all of this corrupted aqidah that came with the tasawwuf, but what did he get on the side? He got aqidah sahiha, but he had that raqa'iq, heart softening, okay? All those years, Ibn Taymiyyah said, leave this is good stuff, raqiq, good, keep this stuff. But get rid of this, it's got what? Shirkiyat and khurafat in it. So we're together. So when you read his book, the heart issues he deals with is very profound. Very profound. Ala aqidati ahl sunnah, alhamdulillah. We're all together, brothers. So I encourage you to get his books. His books are very good. Imaduddin al-Wasiti. There's two people I have to talk about for this book, inshallah ta'ala. Two people I need to discuss. The first one was Imam adh-Dhahabi. And the second one is the person who the advice has been given to, and that is Muhammad ibn Rafi' as-Salami. Okay? So before I go in, hey, who knows Al-Imam adh-Dhahabi? Hey, Hamza Faddal.
He was a student of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah.
Al-Imam al-Dhahabi was a student of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. What's he known for? What works has he written that he's really well known for?
Hadith.
So he's a scholar of hadith. And he's also known for tarikh, history. He's a historian. So what are some of his works? Can someone tell us what are some of his works that are out there that are known, that or you've heard of from the works of Shaykh al-Islam, from the works of Imam al-Dhahabi? If you can name one of his books. Al-Imam al-Dhahabi. Anyone other than Hamza? Fadal. Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. Siyar A'lam al-Nubala is actually a book that compiles hundreds, maybe thousands, of a great Imam's biography, starting from the Prophet ﷺ, and he goes through the companions, and then he goes through the tabi'een and atba'u tabi'een, and he goes through them all. He written before that, like in Tariq al-Islam, like the history of Islam, that is bigger. Some people, they think that Siyar A'lam al-Nubala is a summary of Tariq al-Islam. And they think if you can't read Tariq al-Islam, then you should read Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. What I say is, that's not the case. That's incorrect. Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, yes, it's true. It's smaller. Siyar A'lam al-Nubala is smaller than Tariq al-Islam. So in other words, Tariq al-Islam has more information, correct? But there are also information in Siyar A'lam al-Nubala that are not in Tariq al-Islam. Are we all together? But Tariq al-Islam is more about not individuals only. He speaks about individuals, but Tariq al-Islam, he focuses more on lands and countries and things like that. He talks about it. Whereas Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, he's more focused mainly on the biography of people. And of course, in there, sometimes he's Dhahabi. So he goes into issues of aqeedah, issues of fiqh, and I like it when he says qultu. Right after he mentions the biography or a statement, he generally will say qultu, I said. And then he'll mention some beautiful 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of benefit which you could take from that book. Does any other book that he's written that you know of? Hey? Mizan al-I'tidal is another book he's written, which basically deals with the narrators. The whole kitab is called Mizan al-I'tidal. He basically weighs them, their integrity, how reliable are they when it comes to hadith, can it be taken from them? So he's, and then after him, Ibn Hajar came and he worked on the Mizan al-I'tidal. He called it Lisan al-Mizan. Are we all together? And whatever he agreed with, he took it, whatever he disagreed with. Any other works of his that you know? Hamza.
Al-Kaba'ir.
He has a book called Al-Kaba'ir, Major Sins. Like one of the books that people go back to when it comes to major sins. He's written that book. It's called Al-Kaba'ir, Major Sins. So if you want to know what constitutes major sins, what is a major sin, with evidences, he mentions it there. Now, any other book, anybody other than Hamza? Dhahabi, any other book that you know he's written? So what does this show you like him? It shows you how much knowledge he had. He was a what? Very knowledgeable man. He has a kitab that many people don't know. It's called Zaghalul Ilm. It's called what? Zaghalul Ilm. Now this kitab is a controversial book of his. It's a what? It's a controversial book. This book, he criticizes Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah in this book. One of the earliest people who did tahqiq of this book, and I think he's actually the first person to do tahqiq of it, was Muhammad Zahid al-Kawthari. Muhammad Zahid al-Kawthari hated Ibn Taymiyyah and his madrasa. He was a Hanafiyyun muta'assib. صح? That Abdulrahman Hassan refuted in his kitab al-Tankil bima fi ta'nib al-Kawthari min al-abatil. Brothers, are we all together? So, in this book, even though I wanted to teach it, and there's a lot of benefit in it, but there's a little shkal here where this issue of, he speaks about Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and he says that he has arrogance, full of himself. He wanted the mashyakha of the things which doesn't go in line with other things that he said about Ibn Taymiyyah. Are we all together? But he's an alim, Dhahabi. He's a what? Scholar. He came out from the madrasa of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. He was the student of also Abu al-Hajjaj al-Bizzi. Okay? So this time, you all know the people who are alive, right? Ibn Kathir. Ibn Kathir. Abu al-Hajjaj al-Mizzi, Ibn Taymiyyah, al-Barzali, Ibn al-Qayyim. The big names that we now know of, they were alive at that time. So that's who Dhahabi is, rahimahullah ta'ala. This kitab, is it his kitab? No, his own student affirms this. Dhahabi has a student called what? As-Subki. So Subki clearly and categorically affirms it. Abu Nasr, Abdul Wahhab, Ibn Ali As-Subki has a kitab called Mu'eed al-Ni'am wa Mubeed al-Niqam. In that book, he clearly attributes it to his teacher, this book. When he does like it, when he attributes it to his teacher, he doesn't mention who the advice is directed towards. Because he directed his advice to Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami. He doesn't mention that this advice is to him. He just says that this is an advice to who? لِبَعْضِ الْمُحَدِّثِينَ فِي هَذِهِ الطَّائِفَةِ. He mentions that it's an advice to some of the people of hadith. The reason why he didn't mention the name Subki was because the advices we're going to see in there is some hard words that some might think that Muhammad ibn Rafi' as-Sallami, it was like that, but it wasn't like that. But he was warning him of problems. Dhahabi was warning him of problems that he saw at that time. He was warning him of don't let these things happen to you. Are we all together? So Subki didn't want people to think that this was a description of who? Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami, because Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami and the family of as-Subki, the father and the son, yani Tajuddin and Taqiyuddin as-Subki, there were a very strong bond between them. Hatta even Mashiakhatu Dar al-Nawiyah, Subki passed the keys to Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami. He said, you teach. And he said to Ibn Kathir, you're not going to teach. And he said, and Ibn Dhahabi, rahimahullah, praised Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami, and he praised him when he was at the age of 23. He called him alim, muhaddith, hafiz, rahal, mutqin. He gave these titles to him. So this is not his description. But sometimes you have to remember, the Arabs, they say, إِيَّاكَ أَعْنِ وَاسْمَعْ يَا جَارَ. They also use you to discuss a matter, but really they intend other people. So it wasn't really a description of who? Muhammad bin Rafi' as-Sallami. He's a righteous man, a man who he's known for his ilm. And if you want to know more about him, go to the kitab Al-Mu'jam Al-Mukhtas by Dhahabi. Okay? You see the praise and what has been said about him over there, inshaAllah ta'ala. We're going to start the kitab bi'idhnillah al-kareem. The kitab is very small. I don't think it will take us more than an hour. Okay? But it'll be an interaction, inshaAllah ta'ala. I'll ask you guys questions. You can ask questions in between the points. Bi'idhnillah al-kareem. نعم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هذه وصية الشيخ الإمام العالم الحافظ البارع أبي عبد الله محمد بن أحمد بن عثمان الذهبي المقري رحمه الله تعالى لمحمد ابن أبي فضل رافع ابن أبي محمد ابن محمد السلامي.
So here Dhahabi, as you can see, he's a muqri. Imam Dhahabi was, before he became a scholar of hadith, he was actually Imam fil qira'at. He has one of the best books in qira'at. It's called Ma'rifatu Qurra'i al-Kibar. In there he puts the list of the scholars of qira'at and he mentions them. So he was an Imam fil qira'at. It shows you this issue of just sticking to one science and being ignorant about the rest. You don't tend to find that in the great Imams before in Islam. They like to من كل فن خذ ولا تجهل به فالحر مطلع على الأسرار. As the poet said, oh, put your legs into all the, read all different sciences and study and learn it from a very foundational level to an advanced level. Take each subject and of course specialize later in whatever you want, but make sure you what? Look at all sciences. So this is who Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi is. Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi he's a Turk, lakin he's Arab in speech, rahimahullah ta'ala. So he was not an Arab, which again shows you can what? Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum. Are we all together, brothers? Hatta even the Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, there's a khilaf. Is he an Arab or not an Arab? Are we all together? A large number of scholars believe that no, he's aslan a Kurdish, Ibn Taymiyyah. Are we all together, brothers? A large number of mu'arrikheen believe he is, Ibn Taymiyyah, that he's not an Arab. And some say no, he's an Arab, wallahu alam. أي نعم.
يا وليد رافع اسمع أقول لك أراك والله مثلي مزج البضاعة قليل العلم بالصناعة فلا أقل من الإقبال على الطاعة ولزوم خمسك في جماعة.
The author here, he says, Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi, he speaks to him and he says to him, listen to carefully what I have to tell you. I see you like myself. Look at the tawadu'. And by the way, this time that he's talking to Muhammad ibn Rafi' al-Salami, he's only 19 years of age. Okay? And he's talking to him, saying this to him. Are we all together, brothers? And he's saying to me, you are the same. And Dhahabi at this time past the age of 40. Are we all together? And he doesn't see himself to be high. So he said, me and you are the same, and we are muzjal bida'a, meaning we have little. We haven't got much. Are we all together, brothers? We are weak when it comes to this science, the science of hadith. We're very da'if. So the thing that is required from me and you is that we face Allah in obedience, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we observe, Allahu Akbar. This is the advice we think is very important for all of us. He says, وَلُزُومِ خَمْسِكَ. Observe your 5, which 5? Your 5 daily prayers. Observe them in what? Fi jama'ah, in congregation. These a'imma, this was important for them. Salawat al-khams, jama'ah. How are you seeking knowledge and you're learning and you're not going to the jama'ah? How? Kif? Ya akhi, how? How are you seeking Islamic knowledge? And you're not going to the masjid to pray salat al-jama'ah. It's not wajib or is wajib. That's not the discussion here. You're a scholar, you're a student of knowledge, you're taking a path of seeking knowledge. Why are you not praying for your 5 daily prayers in the masjid? Why not? Of course, if you're at work and you can't and they won't let you, that's another discussion. Like, let's say the days that you're not, weekend, you're still doing the same thing? You're still praying at home with your wife and children? How do you want your family to respect you if you can't respect Allah's request? Are we all together, brothers? So, jama'ah. Naam.
وهل شيء أقبح من شاب يخدم سنته ولا يعمل بها.
Look at that. Is there anything worse than a youth, okay, who serves the sunnah? He's busy with knowledge of hadith, he's studying knowledge, he's acquiring knowledge, but he doesn't act upon it. Now, what's worse than that person?
نعم. آخر يبالغ في الطلب ويكتب عمن درج ودب.
Another one, what does he do? يعني يبالغ في الطلب. He goes extreme in seeking it. So he writes from who? He writes from every single person. The scholars of hadith, they used to do انتقاء الشيوخ. انتقاء للشيوخ. ما معنى انتقاء للشيوخ? They selected who they took from knowledge. Here, just because you want to learn, you're like, let me learn from everybody. If choose who you take knowledge from. You can't just go and take any knowledge from any and everybody. Are we all together? إذ الفتى حسب اعتقاده رفع وكل ما لم يعتقد لم ينتفع. If this teacher that you're taking from, you yourself know that his aqeedah is not sahih مثلا, and you're like, I'm going to learn hadith from him, or I'm only going to learn nahwa and sarf from him. The idea of a student and a teacher relationship is that the student trusts his teacher. Not that you, when you're studying with your teacher, you're like, I need to be very careful of him. I need to make sure I don't take this from him. Are we all together, brothers? The idea is that you trust your teacher, that he's going to teach you authentic knowledge. So then if the most basic thing that he has to have, which is his aqeedah or tawheed, he doesn't have, and you're like, I can't trust him in this, but I'll trust him in the rest. No, it goes against the relationship between a teacher and a student. So from that perspective, no, it makes no sense for you to seek knowledge from somebody who is what? Who is unworthy of you learning aqeedah from, for you to take knowledge from that person. And so Dhahabi here is saying something a Muslim would understand. When you go to a doctor, you know he's not qualified for what he's doing, and he says, I'm going to do surgery on you. When you go to him, or he diagnoses you, you wouldn't take it from him. Why do you do that for your deen then? Why do you go to online and take fatwas from YouTube videos that you watch, or a snippet, or a quick Google search? You look up the word and keywords, and after that, whatever link comes out, you don't know what website this is, you press on it, and then you go into that channel, and then you take the fatwa. Yani don't know who gave the fatwa. عرفت? So وَيُكْتَبُ وَيَكْتُبُ عَمَّنْ دَرَجَ وَدَبَّ. Yani you write from every single person without choosing and selecting the person that you take from. The Salaf al-Salih, the pious predecessors, they used to say, whenever we wanted to take knowledge from someone, we would look at his samtihi wa dallihi. They look at how he prays, how he is, where is he in the masjid, is he in the jama'ah? Right now. Are we all together, brothers? That's what they used to do. Now.
ويكتب عمن درج ودب ثم لا يصلي.
And then he doesn't pray. Now look at this. You might think this is crazy, but wallahi I've seen Tullab who travel to other Islamic countries to seek knowledge, and then salat time comes in, na'imun. Fajr, they're not praying. Not that they're not praying in jama'ah. Na'im. He prays later whenever he can. Look what he says, Dhahabi, to those people.
فلا بارك الله في هذا النمط.
Yeah, may Allah not put barakah in these type of people. May Allah not bring them out to us. صح? The biggest responsibility on a Muslim is the salah. He doesn't pray salah. فلا بارك الله في هذا النمط. Namat means أي هذه الطائفة. Those type of people.
فإن هؤلاء ما غويتهم بالحديث إلا كغويت المصارع والساع ولاعب الحمام بل أولئك أعذر بالجهل. وهذا المعثر يسمع الألوف من الحديث فيها الوعيد والتهديد والعذاب الشديد ولا يتزجر بل ما أظنه يسمع شيئا ولا يفهم حديثا لأنه إن كان قارئا بنفسه فبجهده أن يتحجى الأسماء والمتون ويبدل ما يشير إليه وعينه إلى تنبيه الشيخ تارة وإلى أمرض حاضر تارة وإلى إقامة الإعراب تارة لئلا يخزى بين الحاضرين وإن كان غيره القارئ استراحة فأنا كفيل لك بأنه ما يسمع غيره ثنى قال ثنى وصلى الله عليه وسلم لكثرة دور ذلك.
He mentioned a group of people whose knowledge is very artificial. These people, they hear thousands of ahadiths read very often. There are in it al-wa'id, wal-tahdeed, wal-adhab. Punishment of Allah has been spoken about. Warnings are being given. وَلَا يَنْزَجِرْ. And he does not take heed. Does not rectify his situation. Doesn't change. All day he's hearing these ahadith. All he just wants is the ijazah for this book. Are we all together? Brothers reading ayat from the Qur'an. Yani he's doing qira'at and he's doing ashara, sughra, kubra, all of this. Lakin all it is for him is just, I took ijazah from this sheikh, who took it from this sheikh, who took it from that sheikh, who took it from that. Artificial knowledge. This is not the knowledge that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If really what you were reading it for was yourself and the rectification of your own actions, you go far with it. What's amazing is that this was the time of Dhahabi. Imagine today if he saw this. Are we together? It's very shocking. And then he talks about some of the deficiencies that these people have. Are we all together, brothers? And that is not lowering your gaze. You're talib ilm, this person who's studying and seeking Islamic knowledge. And here you are looking at the opposite gender, for example. Here he mentions something else that's not our problem, that issues related to Amrad and all of that is not an issue I'm hoping we don't have now. Maybe it's coming with this LGBT stuff. But this is not an issue generally we have. Like in opposite gender is the biggest problem. Al-Talib al-Ilm is on TikTok. Huh? Keef. Sah brothers, TikTok, can anybody be on TikTok? Yeah? All TikTok is what? Music and dancing and is there anything else to TikTok? Yeah? So how do you have a TikTok account and you're a student of knowledge, mathalan? Does that make sense? My advice to all of you is anyone who has social media accounts, nasihati ilaykum, wallahi, delete it, khalas, leave it. It's ضياع للوقت. And the fasad and the corruption that it brings you is more than the benefits that it brings you. Are we all together? So this student who's studying, who's memorizing, he's reading حدثنا, أخبرنا, أنبأنا, he's taking all of that. But really what he's protecting is the grammatical ruling, that he doesn't read it as حدثنا, he makes sure he does it properly. أخبرنا, he says it properly. When he reads it properly, he makes sure the haraka is correct. But he doesn't realize there's something bigger than all of that. These things are big and important, of course. But what is more important is what's behind these words, what are behind this ahadith. That's where the problem lies. نعم.
فتراه إما يكتب الأسماء حال السماع فيبطل ويبطل أو ينسخ في جزء أو يكتبه اتفاقا أو يطالع في شيء وهذا أجود أحواله ولا جودة فيها أو بمكان وهذا الأغلب يحدث جليسه ويمزح مع الصبيان الملاح فمتى يسمع هذا أو يعقل أو يبصر أو يغني عنه الحديث شيئا وأما قول وكيع.
So another thing that when it comes to seeking knowledge as well is the seriousness of learning and the dedication of taking knowledge very serious. You find a group of people, subhanallah, they come to a lecture and they lose the mannerism, hatta even if you're studying online, wallah. The akhlaq and the adab should be there. And Imam Malik, rahimahullah, one of the things that he was mentioned was that whenever he would when he wanted to narrate a hadith, he would dress, he would comb his hair, he would shower for it, he would be in the best state of mind and physical appearance in order to say the speech of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Are we all together, brothers? You see brothers, they're texting whilst they're in the lecture, they are laughing next to the person next to them. And the mannerism, the etiquettes of how to seek knowledge, especially I have to be honest with you brothers, it's very low when it comes to the Salafis and the people who attribute themselves to Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This issue of mannerism and akhlaq seems to be lower in us than it is in other groups. وَلِلْأَسِفِ الشَّدِيدِ, that chapter is like we've closed it, we don't want it, we don't want to use it. صح? And this is not how the Salaf circles were. They came, you couldn't. First of all, the Sahabas, كَأَنَّهُمْ عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمُ الطَّيْرِ. Your narrations mention, it was like birds were on their heads. Why? Because it was still. When the Prophet would speak, you wouldn't hear anything other than the Prophet's words. Quiet and silence. That's the Sahabas, when they taught, that's how they taught. And the Tabi'een and the Atba'u Tabi'een. We're all together, brothers. Abdulrahman ibn Mahdi, and if you look at the circles of and the classes he used to teach, and Imam al-Shafi'i the same way, and he used to teach his students in Egypt and also in Iraq, same thing. They said about him, Shafi'i, that his student was, the reciter was al-Za'farani. Za'farani was a reciter for the al-Shafi'i. He was very clean in his recitation, so he used to read for him. And the students would be Abu Thawr and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they would be the students of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. And he would, Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, no one would dare to talk whilst he gives the class. Are we all together, brothers? And that's how he taught. Then he went to Egypt and he carried on teaching like that. Ismail ibn Yahya al-Muzani, Abu Ya'qub al-Buwayti, and Al-Rabi' al-Muslim, al-Muradi, and all of them, they became his students again, well-mannered people. So this thing, brothers and sisters, when it comes to seeking knowledge, and mannerism is very important. You should be known for your akhlaq and your adab. Naam.
وأما قول وكيع إن هذا الحديث يصدكم عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة فهل أنتم منتهون.
So Waki' here is Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi. Okay, he's an Imam Hafiz. He's a 2nd century Imam. He died in the year 197 Hijriya, rahimahullah ta'ala. He's the teacher of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, ala qawlin. Some scholars say that there is not a dispute and discussion related to that. Like Waki' is higher than Hatta Shafi'i. Shafi'i was born in the year 150. And Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi died what? 197 Hijriya. So if he did meet him, how long did he meet him? It's the one he said, شكوت إلى وكيع بسوء حفظي فأرشدني إلى ترك المعاصي وقال إن العلم نور ونور الله لا يهدى لعاصٍ. Shafi'i said that when he complained about his memorization. So Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi, look what he said. Listen to this, brothers. He said, إن هذا الحديث يصدكم. This knowledge of hadith, it will block you. عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة فهل أنتم منتهون. It can be an obstacle for you guys. Okay? From the remembrance of Allah. And even sometimes from the prayer. So are you going to what? فهل أنتم منتهون. Are you going to stop this? What does this mean? There was something that arose at the time of Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi, which is ulu al-isnad. People wanted very short chains of narrations to the Prophet. It was a trend of that time. The shorter to the Prophet, the better. We hear that today, right? I'm going to go and read the Qur'an on this shaykh because his chain is very short to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Or I'm going to read this book of hadith to this person because his chain of narration is very short. Sah? People do that. So ulu al-isnad became an addiction for the people of hadith. And it was taking them away from the real goal, which is what? Al-amalu bil-ilm, acting upon knowledge. So that's what Waki' ibn Jarrah is talking about in that sense. That the person is so into this rather than what the hadith is talking about and the meaning that is in what? The hadith. The meaning that is in the hadith. نعم.
فهذا قاله في الصلاة المقارنة للذكر وهو النوافل أي يقلل تشاغلكم بالنوافل فانتهوا عن ذلك.
So here, Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi, he meant this will prevent you not from the wajibat. Of course, these people will not leave their wajibat. But it will prevent you from what? The voluntary prayers. While you're running after ulu al-isnad, and you're running about, what are you going to lose out on? You're going to lose out on rewards of the rawatib and the sunan. And anyone who seeks knowledge will tend to find that. Sometimes you're addicted. Sometimes I might come to the masjid and I just left home just on a cliffhanger. The iqamah went off. I come running to the masjid. The imam, I'm like, lead us salah. As soon as alhamdulillah, I have to quickly think, should I pray the sunnah or should I just go home and carry on reading? It gets in the way. Are we all together, brothers? So you have to calm down and do your salah now and pray your sunnah and then go back and study and read. So this is important.
أما أن يصدهم عن الفرائض الخمس.
But as for this hadith, to stop them from their 5 daily prayers, this is not going to happen. This is Islam and kufr. So Waki' ibn Jarrah al-Ru'asi, he is not talking about someone who's missing dhuhr, asr, and maghrib, and isha. No, not at all. He's talking about somebody who would miss qiyamul layl, for example, because he's awake, not because he's sleeping, because he's memorizing his hadith, or because he's in another land and he's trying to take knowledge from a scholar. So he's reading a hadith on the shaykh, so he misses qiyamul layl. Very now.
فحاشا لله هذا ما كان في سيرهم قط إلا في أيام الجهاد وقبلها بمدة. وهل يترك الصلاة محدث إلا وهو من الرذالة الزبالة أو إلى التعثر والضلالة فإن كمل نفسه.
So the type of, so he said the only time their situation would actually change when it comes to their 5 daily prayers was when they do jihad, because they have to do jama'ah, combine between the prayers, okay, and also when they're traveling and things like that. But other than that, their salah is at its time. Are we all together, brothers? He says, وَهَلْ يَتْرُكُ الصَّلَاةَ. Who leaves the salah? Except a what? محدث وهل يترك صلاة محدث. Will a scholar of hadith leave salah إلا وهو من الرذالة. That one that does that is a person who's radi, insignificant, لا قيمة له. There's no value. That's the type of person who's going to leave it. And he's on the path of misguidance. And نعم.
فإن كمل نفسه بتلوط أو قيادة فقد تمت له الإفادة، وإن استعمل من العلوم قسطا فقد ازداد مهانة وخبطا، وبذل دينه لشيطانه وأدبر عن الخير. فهل في مثل هذا الضرب خير؟ لا كثر الله مثلهم. لا كثر الله مثلهم. فما حظ الواحد من هؤلاء إلا أن يسمع ليروي فقط.
So this person who all he does and all he wants from knowledge is in gathering of information. May Allah not increase the likes of these people. That's all he wants. He likes the information. He wants people to say, this brother memorized Bukhari, Muslim and Abi Dawood and Tirmidhi ibn Majah and Nasa'i. He's memorized these books. That's all he wants from knowledge. Amen.
فليعاقبن بنقيض قصده وليشهرنه الله تعالى بعد أن ستره مرات.
Allah is going to punish that person because all he wants to be is known and famous, and all his goal and objective is by all means necessary be like the scholars, just like them, use those keywords that they use, طيب والنعم and all of those things. The author rahimahullah here says فَلَيُعَاقَبَنَّ بِنَقِيضِ قَصْدِهِ. He will be punished with the opposite of what he was looking for. He wanted to get a good name from this, لكن وَلَيُشَهِّرَنَّهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بَعْدَ أَنْ سَتَرَهُ. Allah is going to expose him after he concealed his mistakes for him.
وَلَيَبْقَيَنَّ مُضْغَةً فِي الْأَلْسُنِ.
يعني it's going to be like a piece of meat in the mouth. يعني people are just going to talk about you in a negative way.
وعبرة بين المحدثين.
And the scholars of hadith are going to see you as a lesson, and they're going to look at you as an example of what can happen to somebody who treads on the wrong path of seeking knowledge. No.
ثم ليطبعن الله على قلبه.
And then the heart is sealed, brothers. The heart, there's going to be a block on it. So look, you gain knowledge, or you've gained information, but because you know so much, actually know so much, and you've chosen not to act upon it, your heart becomes sealed. So anyone who talks to you is just quiet, because the heart becomes blocked.
وربما سلب التوحيد.
Sometimes وربما, it could happen, سلب التوحيد, that the tawheed is removed from this person. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ردة, apostasy.
وطمع فيه الشيطان.
وطمع فيه الشيطان means the shaitan has desires in you. You become shaitan's focus point.
فدخل في باطنه الخراب وشككه في الإسلام والنبوات إلى أن يخسر الدنيا والآخرة. نسأل الله العفو والستر.
So the author here, he says that what happens after that? The person, he studied the deen, his intentions were bad, and then after that he wasn't following the religion and the knowledge that he was learning, and then now he became affected in a negative way. A few months later you're hearing him saying, Allah, I have doubts about Islam. Brothers, what do you think about this information? Isn't this what we see in some people today? Apostating from Islam, atheism and this and ism. Wallahi, go back to this kalam and look at it again. Su'ul maqsad. The evil intent of them is what exactly that we're seeing today from these people. Sah? It's an alchemy. It starts from that small little seed and then it carries on. Allah is exposing you. فَلَا يُعَاقِبَنَّ اللَّهَ. Allah is exposing you for بِنَقِيضِ قَصْدِكَ يَا عَبْدَ اللَّهِ. The opposite of your intention. Your intention was, I want to be famous and good, but Allah is exposing you for all the evil that you were doing. And Allah has now brought you out in the public. after He concealed for you so many times. So many times Allah concealed for you, hidden it for you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you become a lesson for every single person. Tawheed is now being taken from you because that's a blessing. Tawheed is a ni'mah. Are we all together? It's taken from you. Surah Al-Nahl is called what? Surah Al-Ni'am, right? What's the first ni'mah Allah mentions? What's the first mention Allah mentioned? يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ بِالرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ عَلَى مَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ أَنْ أَنذِرُوا أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. The first blessing that's mentioned is what? Tawheed. Are we all together, brothers? So Tawheed is a blessing. Allah will take that blessing away from you. Why not? You don't deserve Tawheed. You don't deserve anything. So you become a murtad adil in Islam. You leave the folds of Islam. Shaitan loves you now. He loves you. Now he's going to use you to propagate and push misguidance and desires to the people. And guess you're just in state of doubt. And then he says, نَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ. We ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala al-afwa wa sitr. We ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala for forgiveness and to conceal us. Right? So we're all together, brothers. What do you guys think about what the Shaykh is saying here? It's very important, brothers, for knowledge. This is important for knowledge, صح? Yeah.
فبالله يا أخي ثم بالله اتق الله في نفسك المسكينة ولا تكن ممن أدخله طلب الحديث النار فما ارتفع رافع إلا بالتقوى والخير وملازمة الآداب النبوة.
Here, he says to him, فَبِاللَّهِ by Allah, يَا أَخِي ثُمَّ بِاللَّهِ by Allah, my brother, by Allah, my brother. Fear Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in your nafs, which is miskeen. وَلَا تَكُنْ مِمَّنْ أَدْخَلَهُ طَلَبُ الْحَدِيثِ النَّارَ. Don't be from the people who, because of seeking the knowledge of hadith, you end up being in hellfire. It was meant to take you to Jannah, seeking knowledge of hadith. Seeking this knowledge becomes a means for you to go into the hellfire. He says, فَمَرْتَفَعَ رَافِعٌ. Your father Rafi', his name is Muhammad bin Rafi', right? He said, your father Rafi', Allah did not raise him إِلَّا بِالتَّقْوَى because he was a righteous man. Ya taqwa, Muhammad. وَالْخَيْرِ, he had so much khair in him. وَمُلَازَمَةِ الْأَدَابِ النَّبَوِيَّةِ. And he stuck to the prophetic etiquettes. Your father, the reason why Allah raised him, okay, and he reached where he reached, was because of taqwa, وَالْخَيْرِ وَمُلَازَمَةِ الْأَدَابِ النَّبَوِيَّةِ. So this is going to hit home for him. Your own father was a righteous man. سِرْ عَلَى دَرْبِهِ. Take his path.
فإن قبلت نصحي فما أولاك بالخير والتوقير وإن أعرضت كإعراضك عن وصية الإله العظيم فتبا لك سائر الدهر فإن الله يقول وهو أصدق من قال وأرحم من أمر وأعلم من أوحى وأكرم من هدى وهو أشفق علينا من أنفسنا ولقد وصينا الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم وإياكم أن اتقوا الله فبالله قل لي هل يكون طالب من خدام السنة يتهاون بالصلوات أو يتعاني تلك القاذورات؟ لا والله ولا هو ممن اتقى الله. وأنحس من ذلك كله محدث يكذب في حديثه ويختلق الفشارات فإن ترقت همته المقيتة إلى الكذب في النقل والتزوير في الطباق فقد استراح وترس الطلب على اسمه ورسمه صورة ومعنى.
Another one he mentions, so he tells him, take my advice. If you don't, then your destruction is on your way. And he mentions to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave an advice of a taqwa, just like I've given it to you. Allah gave it to the previous nations. وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. Allah has given this advice to the previous nations and the previous prophets. Then he said to him, هَلْ يَكُونُ طَالِبٌ. Can a student of knowledge who's seeking knowledge, مِنْ خُدَّامِ السُّنَّةِ, someone who serves sunnah, can he يتهاون بالصلاة? Can he be, when it comes to the prayers, can he be negligent? Is it possible that a person is seeking Islamic knowledge and he's a talib ilm, like when it comes to the salah, يتهاون في شأنها, he's very inconsiderate about it. Okay, أو يتعانى تلك القاذورات, or these filthy zina, sariqa, all these things, He's mixed up in all of this stuff. And he's a person of hadith. He's studying, he's writing the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, La wallah. No, he can't. وَلَا هُوَ مِمَّنِ اتَّقَى اللَّهِ. And he's not from the people of taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says, وَأَنْحَسُ بِذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ مُحَدِّثٌ. Worse than all of that is what? A person is narrating hadith, okay? يَكْذِبُ فِي حَدِيثِهِ. And he lies in his hadith, in his normal conversations. Are we all together, brothers? When he speaks, he's a liar, kadhab. He makes up information and things that he says. How are you a person of knowledge and hadith and you lie in everything that you say now?
وإن تعاني سرقة الأجزاء وكشط الأوقاف فهذا لص بسمت محدث وإن جعل الطلب له مأكل والدكانا فالأعمال بالنيات ولا قوة إلا بالله فاقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك عليك حسيبا وأعوذ بالله أن أكون قد ضيعت الزمان في نعت بطلة الطلبة أبلاهم الله بالغلبة فافتح عينك واحضر ذهنك وارعني سمعك فإن انتفعت وعقدت مع الله عقدا فقد توسمت فيك الخير وإن شرت وركبت الإعراض والكسل مثلي فوا حسرت علي وعليك.
He says to him, at that time there were some issues that some people would take. Back in those days there was no printing houses, right? So if you wanted a book you have to write it yourself. And some people would take people's books and not give it back to them. A form of stealing. Is what we today call copyright. But those days it was different. It was like, I wrote this book. Okay, not that it's not my book. But I wrote for Fathul Bari with my own hand. This is my copy of Fathul Bari. I wrote it with my own hand. You come and you say, can I borrow it so I can write from it? And you just don't give it back to me. It took me maybe 4 months, 3 months to write it. It's not just it's printed from somewhere. And now the book is with you and you've stolen it, you don't want to give it to me. And then I'm running after you, I want my book and you don't plan and you don't want to give it to me. La hamma laka, there's no desire to give me back the book. So these people, and some of them might even sell that book on, because it costs a lot of money. Are we all together, brothers? So because remember, every time that we went further from the Prophet, there were dukhala. There were people who enter in the knowledge of the deen, but really not from it. Falsely. Sah? So he warns against this. He also reminds him of, he says, فَقْرَأْ كِتَابَكَ كَفَى بِنَفْسِكَ الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكَ حَسِيبًا. The ayah. Sah? That's what the ayah says. So don't waste your time. That day when you're given your book and you're going to look at all your deeds, do not let it be blank where you could have put righteous deeds in there. So he said to him, فَافْتَحْ عَيْنَكَ, open your eyes. وَحْضَرْ ذِهْنَكَ, bring your heart and your mind present. وَأَرِعْنِي سَمْعَكَ, and bring your ears close to me. If you take on this advice that I've given you, you're going to benefit a lot of khair from it, inshallah ta'ala. And if you've chosen to go against it and oppose it, and you choose laziness and inconsideration, or you don't consider what I have to say, like I am, mithli, like the way I am, like I've not taken all these things on board myself, فَوَا حَسْرَةَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَيْكَ, then there is a regret for you and me, both of us. And Jamal Azzoun says at the bottom, هذا من تواضع الحافظ الذهبي وحاشاه أن يكون هو أو ابن رافع السلامي من أهل الإعراض والكسل. Both of them are not like this. The one who's writing the advice and the one who the advice is being written to, both of them are not like that. They're two individuals who are righteous, whose knowledge we are benefiting. Muhammad ibn Rafi' al-Sallami has a kitab called Al-Wafayat, very beneficial book, because it shows you diqqatu ilmihi, very deep knowledge. Imagine he's been called a hafiz by Al-Imam al-Dhahabi, and Imam al-Dhahabi is very strong when it comes to the tarajim of the narrators. He knows individuals. He's got a kitab called Mizanul I'tidal. His job is to criticize and critique people. And he refers to him at the age of 23, a hafiz, alim, rahal, mutqin, and he gives him big titles. And he's only what? 23. And he even wrote this advice to him when at the age of 19 because he saw in him that light. He wouldn't waste his time of writing a letter to someone who's very bad, but he did that because of the love that he had for him. نعم.
فثمة طريق قد بقي لا أكتمه عنك وهو كثرة الدعاء والاستعانة بالله العظيم في آناء الليل والنهار وكثرة الإلحاح على مولاك بكل دعاء مأثور تستحضره أو غير مأثور وعقيب الخمس في أن يصلحك ويوفقك.
The author rahimahullah here he says فثمة طريق, there is another road قد بقي لا أكتمه عنك, which I do not want to conceal from you. Again the ulama, Jamal Azul, look what he said at the bottom. He said وهذا شأن العلماء. This is the affairs of the scholars. لا يكتمون ما يعلمون. They don't conceal what they know. ولا يألون جهدا في إبداء نصائحهم. And they do not hold any effort back in exerting and pushing forward advices. رغبة في الهداية والإصلاح. What they want from this is that Allah guides this person, Allah gives them upright. That's how they are. That's why he said فثمة طريق قد بقي لا أكتمه عنك. There is a path which I'm not going to conceal from you, which is وهو كثرة الدعاء. Make a lot of dua. والاستعانة بالله العظيم, and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala في آناء الليل والنهار, day and night. وكثرة الإلحاح. إلحاح means دعاء بعد دعاء. إلحاح means to go over again, not stop. Ya Allah please, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi. That repeating is called al-ilhah. That's what you should do. على مولاك بكل دعاء مأثور تستحضره أو غير مأثور. The du'as that you know and that you've studied and you've memorized. Can a brother, somebody put a sutra for that brother over there, he's praying. Du'a'in ma'thurin, or du'a which is not ma'thur. Only the du'a that have been transmitted from the Prophet ﷺ and the du'a that hasn't been transmitted from the Prophet ﷺ. And this is a benefit, by the way. As a benefit, when I read this book many years back, this is the benefit I took from it, which is making du'a, according to Dhahabi, making du'a with what is ma'thur and ghayr ma'thur, he sees it to be both permissible. You write that down. That's a benefit, by the way, brothers. That's how you write benefits from books. Later this mas'ala might come to you. Sah? Is it a must for me when I make dua, I only make it what's been transmitted from the Prophet? Or can I make dua with my own wordings? Are we all together? Or does it all have to be from the Qur'an, from the ahadith, from the Sunnah? Generally speaking, when your dua are general, is general dua? No. You can say whatever you like. It's better, no doubt, to say what the Prophet said. Why? Because the Prophet is more eloquent than you. The Prophet ﷺ's words are more precious than your words. But if you do choose to say, if you do try to want to say in your own wordings, you can. But there are places where you have to make dua in what? The way that the Prophet said it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Some places, the dua has to be what? Ma'thur. Like for example, after the dubur salah, right? After the ending of the prayer, the dua that you have to say, and also when you're going to sleep, the duas that you have to say, you have to be taking it from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Like in the duas that you need to make when you're in your sujood. No. The Prophet said, أكثروا في الدعاء وأنتم في السجود فحري أن يستجاب لكم فقامن أن يستجاب لكم. If you're in sujood, increase in your dua because it will be accepted from you. صح? So you can say what you want in your sujood. نعم.
والزم ولا بد آية الكرسي في دبر صلوات المفروضة.
That's why he says now, stick to آية الكرسي. آية الكرسي is what? الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. آية الكرسي. It's the greatest ayah in the Qur'an, right? أعظم آية في كتاب الله. The greatest ayah in the what? In the Qur'an. The entire Qur'an, the greatest ayah is this ayah. Ayatul Kursi. So he said, say it. هي في دبر الصلوات المفروضة. Again, there's a dispute what dubur means. Because the Prophet said it to Mu'adh ibn Jabal when he said to him, والله إني لا أحبك فلا تدعن أن تقول في دبر كل الصلاة اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. What does the word dubur mean?
Does dubur mean the ending of the prayer before the taslim, or does it mean after the taslim? There is a dispute amongst the fuqaha. Where would it fall? Lakin inshallah ta'ala, that which is adhhar wal asah is that it is after the prayer, after the taslim, inshallah ta'ala. Naam.
وأكثر الاستغفار والأذكار والزم الصدق المفرط عن كل بد في كل شيء ولا تستكبر ولا تكن ممن يستكبر مما علم فإنك جاهل خبل.
The author says, he says, وَالْزَمِ الصِّدْقَ, be truthful, okay? In everything. Do not be an arrogant person. And don't be arrogant in something that you what? Because when knowledge comes, a lot of times some people, they know things, they become a bit arrogant, full of themselves. And the scholars mention, Ibn al-Jawzi mentions in his kitab Sayyid al-Khatir, that the time when this knowledge makes you arrogant is when it's not really full. We all together, brothers. It's when, Ibn Taymiyyah even said, إِنَّمَا يَضُرُّ الدِّينِ نِصْفُ فَقِيهٍ وَيَضُرُّ الْأَبْدَانِ نِصْفُ طَبِيبٍ. The one that destroys people's religion is the one that is half knowledgeable. He's got a little bit, so he thinks he knows everything, but he really just knows little. But he does know something, so this is what's tricking him. And also what harms people's bodies is a doctor who only knows little. He thinks he knows it all, he just knows a little bit. He's half. So he thinks just because he got this much, the rest is already there for him. وَهَكَذَا. Every sign, but the more the person learns, the more they realize, I'll look into this issue. I'll check it more. Because they know how much layers are on top of each other. Sah? So every single time that you learn, you become aware of your own ignorance. That's true. Sah? So that's what he means. فَإِنَّكَ جَاهِلٌ خَبَلٌ. That you are an ignorant person. Like that's how we all are.
فدوام بالله على التواضع الزائد والمسكنة للمسلمين إلا الفاسقين منهم.
So always be consistent. مداومة التواضع. Always stick to tawadhu, humility. Muslims always just mutawadhu. Don't see it as a bad sign. Some people, they say to you, no, I'm not going to be mutawadhu. Why? Because people are going to walk all over me. No. Tawadhu is a sibatun bariza of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Ulama in Islam, when you look at them, one of the qualities that they had was tawadhu, humility, sah? And we've seen some of those examples from Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi here right now, sah? Also, وَالْمَسْكَنَةِ لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. Be a person who is easygoing and simple and kind and generous and tenderness towards the Muslims. He said, إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ مِنْهُمْ. Like in the fusaq, those who are fasiqeen, fusaq, you be a bit tough with them. A little bit tough with them. نعم.
وأحب لله وأبغض في الله وثق بالله وتوكل على الله وأنزل ضرورتك بالله ولا تستغني إلا بالله وأكثر من لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله ومن الصلاة على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا دائما أبدا.
The author here, he says, وأحب لله, love for Allah تبارك وتعالى, وأبغض في الله, hate for Allah's sake سبحانه وتعالى, وثق بالله, and also rely on Allah تبارك وتعالى, وتوكل على الله, and rely on Allah تبارك وتعالى. When you love someone, love them for Allah's sake. If you hate them for the sake of Allah تبارك وتعالى. Only rely on who? Allah. Rely only, have faith in only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of your issues and your needs, place them in front of Allah. Allah is going to be the one to give it to you. Do not, my brothers, put yourself as a person of knowledge and studying. Do not put yourself in a position where you rely on human beings. This culture that now is on the rise, where the person has to be in an entourage and all these people running with you. A student of knowledge, yuhibbu al-khalwat. You love to be by yourself. You love to fix yourself but benefit the ummah. It's very important, brothers. Okay? And he says, increase in saying La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Increase in saying these words. Also, ومن الصلاة على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا دائما أبدا. Also increase in sending salutation onto the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام. And this is something I have to be honest, a lot of us again we're not doing that. And it's really important to do that. On Fridays, coming to the khutbatul Jum'ah before it starts, early in the morning, come sit in the masjid and just sit there and send salutation on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Keep saying it until the Imam comes. Ibn al-Qayyim talks about this in great details in his kitab Jala'ul Afham fi fadli salati ala khayri al-anam. Hatta Qadi Iyad al-Yahsubi in his kitab al-Shifa, he has nice research on this issue of sending salutation on the Prophet. It's his rights alayhi salatu wasalam. Are we all together, brothers? The Prophet said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-bakhilu man dhukirtu indahu. The real stingy person is the one I am mentioned in his presence and he doesn't send salutation to me. You're a stingy individual. That's why the ulama of hadith are the closest people to the Prophet, because every time they meet, they're mentioning his hadith, so they keep saying sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sah? Are we all together? And Nabi Muhammad is the only prophet that we know is combined for him. Okay? What's combined for him? Salah and salam. If you look at the Qur'an, salamun ala Ilyas. Salamun, they only get salam. That's why we say alayhi salam. Ibrahim, alayhi salam. That's what we say, right? Like in Nabi Muhammad, the ayah says, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Salah and salam. That's why we say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We combine the two for him. Are we all together? And from the verse it shows obligation. From the ayah it shows from the zahir صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Are we all together, brothers? So make sure that you increase in saying alayhi salatu wasalam, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And one of the best ways is by reading his ahadith. By reading his what? Ahadith. And then the author, rahimahullah, he says, the muhaqqiq, he says, intahat al-wasiyyah. The advice, it finishes here. It's a very small advice and concise. And this is what a letter he sent to him. So inshallah ta'ala, my brothers, take time out to go over this book again, inshallah ta'ala. My beloved brother, Hamza's here. So Hamza normally translates these books, all the books that you've ever seen me written in English or anything. Hamza's the one who writes it for me. So inshallah ta'ala, all of you guys put pressure on him to translate the book, inshallah ta'ala, in English, so that we can have it translated for us, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem, and we can all benefit from it, inshallah ta'ala. So, any questions? And how are you guys all? How are you guys finding the AMAU? How's the studying in the AMAU so far? What advices do you guys have and you want to share with us or share with me? This is the one time opportunity I have. Next time I'm going to put my fingers in my ears and I'm going to say I don't want to hear any. Hey, Fadlal.
You said that you consider one time that you said after Salah, like one of the du'as that get accepted is when you say it after that tahiyyat. So even if I do add it after that tahiyyat, it's still acceptable.
Yeah, it's difference of opinion. There is a khilaf. Inshallah ta'ala. Bidnillah. But it's better to stick to the hadith and understand the hadith to be outside the prayer.
In Salah, when you're making dua in sujood, in the first Salah, can we say it in a language other than Arabic, or is it not in the first Salah?
So when you make dua in the salah, you should make it in Arabic. But I'll tell you guys a trick of how to do it. So you say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Hasan is a very general term, right? So you have in mind marriage. So when you say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنًا, what you have in mind is what? Marriage. So Allah knows the intention and what you're looking for here. Another brother, what he means, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنًا, is a business. So inshallah ta'ala, use those general du'as with your intentions coupled with it, and Allah will give it to you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you've got the Arabic,
And you also have what you wanted to get, inshallah ta'ala. No.
Seeking knowledge better than praying at night?
Repeat that question.
Is seeking knowledge better than praying at night?
This similar question was asked to Shaykh Abdul Rahman. He goes, why don't you do both? So, you can pray and you can also seek knowledge, صح? Any other questions?
You know how there was a scholar that said that he didn't used to let students come to his lectures because they didn't memorize the Qur'an. So, do you think it's good to first memorize the Qur'an, نعم, لكن have maybe one book to the side that you memorize as well? Or just first memorize the Qur'an, first understand the Qur'an, and then the hadith will come after? What do you think?
It depends on the age of the person. It depends on what? The person's age. So the brother asked a good question. We need to put the questions to the sisters. The question is, should a person study the Qur'an and memorize the Qur'an and then hadith book? Or should he study the Qur'an and other book with it? If you're at a young age, let's say you're only 9, 10, our youngsters over there, they should only be busy with mainly memorizing the Qur'an. Because they're at that age, they're not mukallaf, meaning they're not burdened to do things that we need to do. They're young. So they shouldn't be preoccupied except with the Qur'an. And of course, once they finish the Qur'an, there are little reminders, lectures, benefits that the father and the mother share with the child. You can bring the child to circles of knowledge to encourage his aspiration for things. But the bulk of his life is about the memorization of the Qur'an. People like me and you, there's obligations on us. We need to pray, so we need to know how to pray. We need to give zakat, we need to give fasting of Ramadan, we need to go Hajj. So for us, it's not enough to just sit down and memorize the Qur'an. For us, we have to take portions of the Qur'an or take time out to memorize Qur'an gradually, okay? And on top of that, seek knowledge of other books, classes and lessons. Naam.
Sorry. And so, you know when you said memorize the Qur'an first, I'm at the age, I'm 19 now, so I'm guessing you're saying to memorize the Qur'an and then keep a book on the side. Naam. Lakin, does the deep understanding of the Qur'an go with the memorization? And what does that go with the hadith later?
No, the memorization is different from understanding it. Understanding comes over time. The deep understanding comes over time. The memorization is what? You're young, mashallah, 19, very young, mashallah. So 19, next 3 years you can finish the Qur'an solid, very solid, inshallah ta'ala. And then if you then start going to tafsir classes and learn and benefit, with the tafsir class will be so easy for you to understand because you have the memorization there. Right now.
I was wondering, so I started studying memorizing the Quran with the Ustadh online, but then I kind of slowed down on the Aqidah lessons on AMAU Academy, and the brothers were telling me you should do both at the same time. So I was wondering what you think of it.
I think, how old are you?
18.
18, Allahumma barik. Wallahi, in a good way, I'm jealous of you guys. In a good way. I don't want Allah to take it away from you guys. Now, I definitely say combine between the memorization of the Quran. Have a long portion of memorization of the Quran, but the Aqeedah classes, you need it. Especially some of the subjects of AMAU, I think you should definitely make it your focus. If you don't have much time and the rest, inshallah ta'ala, you want to do it later, definitely Aqeedah is number one. The classes that Shaykh Muhammad Tim is teaching in Aqeedah, definitely the introduction of Aqeedah is a must. The second class that is there is fiqh. Fiqh, you need to know halal and haram. And so these two subjects, if you can't do the rest at the moment right now, and it's because of restriction in time and etc., this is the way that you should do it. And that's the way, if my memory serves me right, that the classes come out on a weekly basis. They come out as important as they are. Does that make sense? The most important is Aqeedah. You need to do that the first day of the week. And then the second one comes out, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and then the sixth, and the seventh. So they do it according to that method, inshallah ta'ala. But you're, mashallah, 18, don't waste your time. Memorize the Quran, memorize the Quran.
with the Mus'haf, a person has like a wird every day for revision. And then, you know, as you memorize small texts or even hadith, say like 10, 15, are you meant to have like a separate revision cycle for each small text and hadith as well? How do you manage the revision of everything?
So the memorization, don't take too much. The beginning, just take small, something very small. Maybe like maybe a line of the hadith, not the whole entire hadith, one line. And keep repeating that the whole day. And then take a second line, a third line. And the more you start focusing on little and then you make it more bigger, then your brain starts, mashallah, growing. The words become very similar. It's easier for you to now memorize. That's why the qa'idah is, خُذْ حَرْفًا وَقُلْ أَلْفًا. Take one word and say 1,000 times, rather than taking a chunk of hadiths. And you can carry on, sustain yourself like that, and you can push it to the long-term memory. Another thing that helps is to record yourself. Record your own recitation on the voice memos on your phone. That's if you have iPhone. If you don't, I don't know what it's called on Samsung. And then put headphones in and listen to it. Play all day. So my children, they do the same thing. They take their mother's phone, they record it on there, and they send it to me on Telegram. So I get the opportunity to listen to the Qur'an and everything. And also on top of that, they get the chance to listen to their own recitations consistently and all of that. Wow.
I just remember that you wanted a YouTube video where you mentioned that, you know, something similar to this, where when you're memorizing a book, you will record yourself and then you listen to it for 2 months, and naturally so much will be memorized, and then you look at the book. I always wanted to ask you, is that you reciting it, not someone else's recitation of the book? Yeah. Okay.
Which one would you listen to more, your own recitation or somebody else's?
Probably my own.
Yeah. So it catches your attention. So not because you think yours is the better.
Yeah.
But it's just that your voice always has more of a, I want to hear it. So what you record for yourself, you'll be listening to attentively rather than what somebody else recorded. Unless that person has a unique voice. But you...
Regarding like memorize the Quran, so sometimes I listen to like a sheikh and I try replicate the way he recites it. Do I still get the same roots?
So this is a very thin line between imitating the sheikh's tajweed and the way he read it versus imitating the sheikh's voice. So if you're imitating the sheikh's voice, it can be slightly dangerous. Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd has a kitab called Bid'a al-Qurra, the innovations of the reciters. And in it he mentions one of the innovations that tends to happen is when a person tries to mimic the voice of the reciter. He says this goes against the Sunnah. Because the Prophet ﷺ Sahabas never tried to recite like the Prophet's voice. They only try to recite like the Prophet's tajweed. Anyways, whatever it may be, I can't say I agree or disagree with Sheikh Bakr right now because it needs more research. What I do say is, if you're reading according to the way that the Sheikh reads, try to focus more on the tajweed rather than his voice.
Okay.
To clarify, is it better to pray Qiyamul Layl rather than seek knowledge? But I did say, I answered that. I said, a person is able to seek knowledge and also Qiyamul Layl. If you can combine the two, وَالْجَمْعُ وَاجِبٌ مَتَى مَا أَمْكَنَ إِلَّا فَلِلْخِيرِ نَصْرِ بُيِّنًا. Remember all the time, to try to do acts of worship together takes precedence over choosing one over the other. صح? Tarjih is later. And another thing I want you to remember is, another thing I would like you guys to remember is, there are situations where you're going to be forced, okay? You're going to be forced in that situation to have to not pray Qiyamul Layl, because maybe you've got a lesson or a lecture or something. You can't say, I don't want to do the lecture, I want to pray Qiyamul Layl, for example, because the Qiyamul Layl is better, so the amal which is mutahaddi, teaching that knowledge and benefiting the people, is better than you doing your act of worship by yourself, because this encompasses other people. Does that make sense? Versus you praying for your own self. That's a different situation. What about the story of Imam Ahmad and Shafi'i, where he spent the night studying instead of praying? Now, so again, praying, Qiyamul Layl is a virtuous action. Imam Ahmad said, there is not after the 5 daily prayers, a prayer better than what? Qiyamul Layl. But also Ahmad himself said, no, Sufyan al-Thawri said, لا شيء أفضل بعد الفريضة من طلب الحديث. And Ahmad just added one thing to it after that. He said, لمن صحت نيته. There is nothing after the obligatory acts better than seeking knowledge. So Qiyamul Layl falls under this, right? I've just started my journey with AMAU and I feel overwhelmed with all the knowledge I want to gain and learn. It is all, inshallah ta'ala. What should I start with? Start with Sheikh Tim's class on Aqeedah. Sheikh Tim, Allah has blessed him subhanahu wa ta'ala with the ability of making things very easy. In a good positive way, I'm jealous of him like that. Sheikh can take ma'lumat, knowledge, and simplify it. I struggle to do that. Struggle to take this information and be able to break it down in a way that the people can understand. Because I keep thinking, I need to mention this also, and I also need to mention this, and then what tends to happen is the person's looking at me and saying, what language are you talking? Whereas Sheikh Tim, Allah has given him the ability and the basira of taqdeem and ta'khir. Like this one, I don't want to do it now. And I've seen the way he prepares his notes. He's, mashallah, he spreads out the information over a period of time rather than giving the person everything all at once. So definitely give a high priority to the classes of Sheikh Muhammad al-Humble. Aqeedah he teaches, Hadith he teaches also Tazkiyat al-Nafs, the Adab al-Akhlaq. Give importance, especially his Aqeedah one takes precedence over everything and anything, inshallah. So you'll benefit from that greatly. Once you realize and you start taking notes in Aqeedah, the ball starts rolling for you, then inshallah ta'ala, the other classes of his and also mine, you'll benefit some things from inshallah ta'ala. May Allah make it easy for you. How can we purify the heart? How can we purify the heart and intention? Intention is a consistent battle. Everybody needs, every time you have to cure it. It's not something that you do it once and then khalas, you don't have to do it again. Cleaning your heart and purifying your intention is a consistent battle. We know the famous statement, مَا عَالَجْتُ شَيْئًا أَشَدَّ عَلَيَّ مِنْ نِيَّتِي. That the intention is a consistent battle. In one sit, you have to fight with your intention. Sometimes it's for you, sometimes it's against you, sometimes it's for you, sometimes it's against you. What should be the intention when seeking knowledge? The intention is 4 things. To remove ignorance from yourself. Okay, that's the first one. Second one is to benefit the people. That's why you're seeking knowledge. You want to call to the path of Allah. You want everybody else to be on this path with you. So it's to benefit the people. The third one is what? To revive these sciences within Islam. Okay? And the fourth and final is to act upon the knowledge. Those are the 4 intentions that the scholars mention in the line of poetry. فَتَقْصِدُوا أَرْبَعَةً قَبْلَ ابْتِدَاءٍ تَعَلَّمْ لِكَيْ تَفُوزَ بِالْهُدَى أولها الخروج من ضلال والثاني نفع خلق ذي الجلال والثالث الإحياء للعلوم والرابع العمل للمعلوم. What do you do if your mahram doesn't want to get involved, I think, in your late...
I mean, like the mahram's not involved, like they don't want to be a mahram essentially. So the mahram doesn't want to...
Family, marriage, in anything basically in general. They don't want to get involved.
The responsibility basically.
So in terms of seeking Islamic knowledge, when it comes to the masajids, the mahram is not allowed to, whether it be a husband or whether it be a father or anyone, you're not allowed to prevent your wife from seeking Islamic knowledge if she wants to come to the masjid. So the Prophet said, لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله وبيوتهن خير لهن. If your wife says, I'm going to go to the masjid, okay, and I want to seek Islamic knowledge, a husband has no rights to say you can't go to the masjid. Does that make sense? Husband has no rights, because the Prophet clearly said, لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. I think Abdullah ibn Umar, his son, he was Bilal, I think he said, لَأَمْنَعَنَّهُنَّ, I will stop them from it. And then Abdullah ibn Umar said, I will never speak to you ever in my life. And they said he died and he never spoke to his son. So I just told you that the Prophet said, don't stop them from it. So a husband has no right to stop his wife from seeking knowledge if she says, I'm going to go to the masjid. Or even if she says, I want to go to the masjid, not even for seeking knowledge. She don't want to go to pray in the masjid. You can't say you can't go. Okay?
I think the question was more like, for example, she has a brother and the brother's not bothered to help her get married or travel, or he doesn't want, he's busy, he's working or whatever, he just doesn't want to be involved.
That's more of an issue of qada. I think it places to a judge or somebody to look into the situation of the mahram. And is he fitted to be a mahram or not, or whatever, or is he doing his job, or the sister's not seeing it that way? I think you should take it to a judge, inshallah. I don't even look into it.
When it comes to memorizing, is it permissible for us to put markings in the Qur'an, like in terms of mistakes and?
So another question, a very good question, is it allowed for us to scribble notes or even circle the mushaf when it comes to memorizing the Qur'an? My heart is more inclined to, if it's for studying purposes, there's no problem. If it's studying purposes, there's no problem. And children's mushaf, okay, since the day they started from Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, they still have the same mushaf. I do buy them new mushafs, new ones, because the pages, the front page and everything's been ripped a little bit, but I stick to that one. And if you look at it, of course we've got circles and everything on it. But we learned later, وَلِلَأْسَفِ الشَّدِيدِ, that there's actually masahif that have come out where the Qur'an is there and you can just write the notes on the side. They've actually prepared it and they put lines in there. If we was to see it before, maybe we would have used that one better. But to be honest, it's very helpful for the child to know the places that he's doing mistakes. If he gets a little mark, a little pen, by the way, pencil, not pen, a pencil, just underline it. And the hadith and the ghaya is to what? Just to alert him that you're getting this word wrong. And also it's good for the mother or anybody who is listening to the kids' Qur'an later, you already know, these are the places he gets wrong. So it's like, you were doing this mistake when you were learning initially. Why are you still doing the same mistake? Go read the ayat 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. But all together, brothers. So one of the things when it comes to memorizing the Qur'an is don't change your mushaf. Wallahi, one of the most important things. Keeping the same mushaf is very important. So some people, what they do is they change their mushaf, and it confuses, especially, you know, some mushaf, the pages that they start with is different, right? So I like the old mushafs, that the new ones that come out, the skinny small ones, page is slightly different. So,
should brothers get married or make hijrah first?
Do both. Remember, if you could do both, why you should do both?
What did our brother mean by hijrah?
When you
that question's to him, not to me. What do you mean by hijrah?
As in, when we leave the West and enter the Kuffar lands and migrate for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, where are you going to go?
Muslim land.
Which Muslim countries?
Myself, I'll say the UAE. Sharjah, to be exact. I know a lot of brothers that say Sharjah is like the capital, Islamic capital of the UAE, so yeah. And it's family orientated as well, so yeah. I recommend brothers to go there, inshallah.
Inshallah, he said, the brothers are saying that leaving the lands of the non-Muslims and go to the lands of the Muslims. And the Muslim countries, though, mashallah, many Muslim countries, you find the benefits in all of them. When you can practice your deen, you can study, you can focus on your children. As you all know today, I was saying the concept of hijrah, 15, 20 years ago. But now, brothers, I feel like you should all agree with me now. Now, definitely, you know? Right now, the stage we're at right now in the Western country, ajib. Before it was like, you could see where the argument of, now we don't need to do it, we can practice our deen. Now it's clear that they're clapping down on that. To a very strong extent. So protect your children, brothers. You don't want your children coming home and saying, mate, I'm something else.
One thing about marriage, by the way. So you know how the Prophet ﷺ, he says get married young, right? Like now that we're in, universities and, work, and if we get married, let's say, it feels wrong, to have a wife. Maybe she's, because I'm young, maybe she's living with someone else. Maybe she's living with her mom and dad, and what's it called? It just feels wrong, like You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know you're coming from.
Yeah, you know. So what I would say to you, because there's a thing of, does that hadith still matter today? Can you still apply it today, or we just wait until, you know, maybe 2 years, get your money up, you know, finish uni maybe, and then get married?
Allah barik, spot on. My question to you is, if you look back, a 19-year-old back then was considered a real man. He was considered, Osama ibn Zayd was your age when he had the biggest Islamic Muslim army ever at that time. He was fighting the Roman Empire. A 19-year-old was a general for it. And guess what? When he was the general, Nabi Muhammad just passed away. And the Prophet didn't even change him as a soldier army. He actually told them to make sure that they help him and aid him. You understand? But I think we've... and I want us to fight this idea that we're young when we're 19. You're young in the sense, mashallah, Allah gives you life, just a good life to live. But no, you're not young in taking responsibilities and getting married and working and getting yourself straight away into the concept of marriage. Because look, the reason why this is done, wallahi, it's a capitalistic mindset. It's to push you to be single for as long as possible so they can make money from you. That's the system. That's how it's made. They want to make money from you. They want to make money from this woman. All this liberalism and feminism that they're pushing onto sisters, the idea is that the government wants the woman to work. They want the men to work. So how can they make the man work and how can they make the woman work? By telling the woman, these men just want you to stay at home and they don't want to take care of you. If the women were told that these men are going to take care of you, relax, stay at home, the income is going to come from what? One person. The husband, right? And so when it comes to from one person, which is the husband, the government is going to only tax who? Just one person. But why are they going to do that? They're going to tax the man, they're going to tax the woman, they're going to tax the 13-year-old, they're going to watch as time goes on, they're going to make a 13-year-old look for a job. It's going to go down, 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 down. He's going to have to look for a job at the age of 13, and 14 and 15. He's going to have to look for a job because they want to make money quickly from them. I saw a brother, I don't want to say his name. He was making £2,000 a month. Okay, he's married, he's not married, he's single. So I said to him, why don't you get married? He goes, no, I need real money. I need to make real money in order to get married. وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنيهم الله من فضله. You're making 2,000. I promise Allah is going to increase your wealth for you, inshallah ta'ala. Get married, akhi. Look, brothers, I understand a brother who's got zero, nothing to his name. Would I invite him to go get married straight away if he's not fearing for shahwa and desires? I'll say, I can get a job, to be honest. Because remember, when you take this girl from her father, you can't be a person who will have anything. I've got a daughter. It would be very hard for me to give my daughter to a brother who comes up to me and says to me, Sheikh, listen, can I marry your daughter? I say, okay. Where are you going to take her? Inshallah, Allah's going to help. I know Allah's going to help, but I'm currently looking after my daughter, taking care of her financially. For you to take my daughter away from me, brother, help me here so I can help you. You have to be able to what? To provide for my daughter. It's not easy to give your daughter away to somebody who can't. But if the brother says, I've got this much, I've only got this much, and my lifestyle is, me and my family, we're going to be of this, and I'm working to get more money and more income, inshallah. You're 19. In Islam, you're not allowed to commit zina. In Islam, you have to be in a relationship. You can't be in a haram relationship. So you can't, can you? So at the age of 19, you know your school classmates are all in girlfriend, boyfriend relationship, true or false? The Mondays and Thursdays, sometimes it doesn't work for them. So what do you do in that situation? It's a big problem. You open yourself ta'arrudu lil fitna, because they found a back route for the issue of fulfilling their desires. You don't have that. And the only way that you have as a brother and a sister is marriage. Any other way is haram. والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون. So that's why I say, brothers, till the age of 19, and you're not married, you're not committing zina or anything. How are you doing it to the age of 19? Does it make sense? So definitely get married. That's my advice to you. Especially again, you're in a society which is hyper sexualized everywhere you. I'm telling you, man, I came from the UAE. I'm shocked at what I'm seeing here. This is nudity, brothers. They're wearing nothing. Does that make sense? Wallahi, 10 years ago, they never used to dress like this. Yeah? This is crazy. So you're out there, brother, 19, not married. Even now, the brothers are wearing like little vests and all their triceps and their biceps is out. So the sisters are having issues. And the sister, 19, 20, she has never been married. There's zina and problems. Get married when you're young. And take responsibilities for your marriage.
Since you spoke about marriage, so where does like us brothers find a righteous wife?
That's a good question. Where do you find a good wife? Inshallah ta'ala, look in the right direction. That's all I can say. I don't know. I'm not a good... Brothers, when I talk about... That's why I stopped talking about issues of marriage and all those things when it... Because brothers, when it finishes, they're like, Sheikh, can you help me? Sheikh, where can I help you from? I'm scared. So I just believe al-arwahu junudul mujannada ma ta'arafa min a'talafa wa ma tanakara min akhtalafa. If you look in the right directions, the places of khair, you're going to find a person of khair, inshallah ta'ala. Sah? Nowadays, it's what they call it. What's it called? These marriage websites. What they call them? Huh? Matrimonial sites. Go in these practicing Islamic ones, it's done in a proper manner. Inshallah ta'ala, look for your wife if you can. Back in the days, you know what it used to be? Things have changed now. Back in the days, if a man, his daughters reach age of puberty, especially back in my country, the father would come to the masjid. And he would speak in front of the congregation and say, I have a daughter, she's reached age of puberty. Any man who is ready, who's got the financial ability, is also, mashallah, he's got religion, come forward, inshallah ta'ala. That was the way it used to be done. I will tell them. And by the way, if you've got sisters, that's what you should do. That's a good point. If you've got a sister and you know there's a brother in the masjid and he's practicing, he's upon deen, it's not a bad thing to say, Akhi, I have a sister, Akhi. Can I help you, inshallah ta'ala? Can you bring your family and I'll bring my father and my family? Allah is going to reward you, subhanahu wa ta'ala, for building a good, righteous family, sah? Yeah, brothers. Brothers feel a bit shamed to do that, sah? Don't be like that.
You're not under the same roof. You're only married because of percentage or so I say. You know that saying, right?
Yeah, I know.
So what do you think about the being married under the same roof? You have to.
What do you mean under the same roof?
Like you have to live in live together. Yeah, same house.
Yeah, you brought that up quite a few times. Is that an issue here now in the UK where the wife and the husband are not living together?
Yeah, but the very young, let's say she's living her parents or your parents here.
No, you should take the responsibility of your family and bring the wife to your house, and you have to have your own yard. No shortcuts. Take the responsibility wholeheartedly. Sah? Khair, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah bless you all and grant you guys Jannatul Firdaus, and may Allah preserve you. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakum Allahu khaira.